Have you ever walked into a room full of strangers and felt your heart pounding in your chest? Your palms start sweating, your mouth goes dry, and suddenly your mind goes completely blank. You stand there awkwardly, desperately searching for something, anything, to say, but the words just will not come. And when they finally do, they tumble out in a jumbled mess that makes you want to disappear into the floor. I still remember the day I attended my first professional networking event. I spent 30 minutes hiding in the bathroom, pretending to wash my hands whenever someone walked in. When I finally emerged, I hovered near the refreshment table, filling and refilling my small plate with appetizers I was too nervous to eat. I watched others effortlessly float from conversation to conversation while I stood frozen, feeling completely invisible yet paradoxically certain everyone was judging my awkwardness. Does this sound familiar? Perhaps for you it is not networking events but team meetings where you cannot seem to get your ideas heard. Or maybe it is one-on-one conversations where you constantly replay what you said later, cringing at perceived missteps. Or those social gatherings where everyone else seems to be part of an inside joke you simply do not understand. What if I told you that these moments of social anxiety, disconnection, and awkwardness are not personality flaws or unchangeable aspects of who you are? What if the difference between social comfort and social anxiety is not some innate charisma that some people are born with, but rather a set of learnable skills that anyone, yes, even you, can master? Social intelligence is often misunderstood. We tend to categorize people as either naturally charismatic or socially awkward, as if these traits are fixed and unchangeable. But this binary thinking is fundamentally flawed. Social intelligence operates more like a muscle. The more you exercise it properly, the stronger it becomes. Take Grace Mitchell, a software engineer I coached several years ago. Grace was brilliant with code but struggled tremendously in team environments. During meetings, she would remain silent, even when she had solutions to problems being discussed. In one-on-one conversations, she would either overshare personal details or remain so closed off that colleagues found her difficult to connect with. "I am just not a people person," she told me during our first session. "My brain is wired for logic, not for small talk and office politics." This is a sentiment I have heard countless times from clients across various industries and backgrounds. We create these false narratives about ourselves, that we are just shy or not social. And then these stories become self-fulfilling prophecies that limit our potential. The truth is that social intelligence is not some mystical quality possessed only by a lucky few. It is a complex interplay of skills including emotional awareness, communication techniques, behavioral flexibility, and empathetic understanding. And like any skill set, it can be analyzed, broken down, and systematically improved. Consider the work of psychologist Daniel Goleman, who pioneered research on emotional intelligence. His studies revealed that EQ, emotional intelligence quotient, often matters more than IQ in determining professional success and life satisfaction. According to Goleman, social awareness and relationship management are critical components of emotional intelligence, skills that can be deliberately developed through practice and self-awareness. Or take the groundbreaking research from the University of Michigan, which found that after just 12 weeks of structured social skills training, participants showed significant improvements in their ability to read social cues, engage in meaningful conversations, and develop stronger relationships. Brain scans even revealed increased activity in the regions associated with empathy and social cognition. But here is what is truly fascinating. The participants who improved the most were not those who had the highest social aptitude to begin with. They were the ones who approached social skills with what Stanford psychologist Carol Dweck calls a growth mindset. The belief that abilities can be developed through dedication and hard work. This brings us to a critical question. If social intelligence is indeed learnable, why do so many of us struggle with it throughout our lives? Why do we continue to feel awkward in certain situations, misread others' intentions, or fail to make the connections we desperately want? The answer lies in what I call the invisible architecture of social interaction. These are the unspoken rules and subtle dynamics that govern human connection, rules that most of us were never explicitly taught. Think about it. We spend years learning mathematics, writing, and science in structured educational environments. We have textbooks, exercises, and exams to test our progress. But when it comes to the complex art of human connection, we are largely left to figure it out on our own through trial and error, often painful error. This gap in our formal education creates a fascinating paradox. Some people seem to intuitively grasp these unspoken rules through environmental exposure or natural observation skills. Others, even highly intelligent individuals in other domains, struggle to decode these invisible patterns. Consider what happened with Thomas Stevens, a high-performing executive who sought my help after being passed over for promotion 3 times. Thomas had impeccable credentials and consistently delivered exceptional results. Yet his superiors cited leadership presence and team dynamics as areas needing improvement. "I do not understand," Thomas confessed during our first meeting. "I hit every target. My technical skills are unmatched. What more do they want from me?" After shadowing Thomas for a day, the issues became clear. When team members spoke, Thomas would frequently interrupt with corrections or solutions. He maintained little eye contact during conversations. When others shared personal information, he would quickly redirect to work topics. Most tellingly, he was completely unaware of how his behaviors were being perceived. What Thomas was missing was not intelligence but social awareness, the ability to read the emotional temperature of a room, to sense when others feel dismissed or unheard, to recognize the difference between when someone wants a solution and when they simply need validation. This raises an intriguing question. How can someone so perceptive in their professional domain be so blind to social dynamics? The answer involves what psychologists call cognitive tunneling, a phenomenon where we become so focused on certain aspects of our experience that we filter out others. For Thomas, his intense focus on tasks and outcomes created a blind spot around relational dynamics. But there is something even more fundamental at play here. Recent neuroscience research from UCLA suggests that our brains process social pain in many of the same regions that process physical pain. This means that early negative social experiences, being excluded from a group as a child, being mocked for saying the wrong thing, feeling misunderstood by parents or peers, create powerful neural pathways that shape our social behavior for decades to come. In essence, many of us develop protective mechanisms to avoid social pain. We might become overly agreeable to prevent rejection. We might withdraw to avoid potential embarrassment. We might dominate conversations to maintain control. These strategies might have served us in specific contexts, but they often become rigid responses that limit our social flexibility. The good news? These neural pathways are not set in stone. Through a process scientists call neuroplasticity, we can literally rewire our brains by consistently practicing new social behaviors and thought patterns. Take the case of Gabriela Mendoza, a brilliant graduate student who struggled with severe social anxiety. Through structured exposure and consistent practice of new social skills, Gabriela was able to transform her experience of social interactions. 6 months into our work together, she gave a presentation at an academic conference, something she once considered impossible. The anxiety did not disappear completely, she told me afterward, but it no longer controlled me. I could feel it there in the background while still connecting with my audience. That is when I realized I did not need to become a different person. I just needed different tools. This brings us to another critical insight. Effective social intelligence is not about becoming someone you are not. It is about expanding your behavioral range so you can respond authentically and effectively to different social contexts. Consider how a skilled musician can play both delicate, tender passages and powerful, dynamic ones depending on what the music calls for. Social intelligence works the same way. It gives you access to a wider range of responses so you can adapt to what each interaction needs. But here is where many people get stuck. They view social skills as manipulative or inauthentic. "I do not want to play games," they tell me. "I just want to be myself." This perspective creates a false dichotomy between authenticity and social effectiveness. The truth is that skilled social interaction is not about manipulation but about communication clarity. It is about expressing your authentic self in ways others can receive and understand. Think of it like learning a new language. If you visit a country where you do not speak the local language, are you being fake by trying to learn basic phrases? Of course not. You are simply trying to connect across a communication gap. Social skills function similarly. They help you translate your authentic self into behaviors that bridge connection with others. This insight leads us to a profound question. What specifically separates socially intelligent people from those who struggle? What are the actual, concrete differences in how they perceive and respond to social situations? Research from the Social Cognitive Neuroscience Laboratory at Dartmouth College offers fascinating answers. Using advanced eye-tracking technology, researchers discovered that socially skilled individuals spend significantly more time looking at specific facial regions during conversations, particularly the triangle between the eyes and mouth, allowing them to pick up subtle emotional cues that others miss. Even more interesting, socially intelligent people demonstrate greater activity in the brain's mirror neuron system, the neural networks that help us understand others' actions and emotions by mentally simulating them. This suggests that social intelligence is not just about what we say or do, but how we observe and internally process others' experiences. This brings us to what may be the most powerful social intelligence hack of all, perspective taking. The ability to temporarily step out of your own viewpoint and consider a situation from someone else's perspective is perhaps the master key that unlocks almost every other social skill. A landmark study from the University of Chicago demonstrated that when participants were specifically trained in perspective-taking exercises for just 2 weeks, they showed measurable improvements in empathic accuracy, conflict resolution, and relationship satisfaction. The researchers concluded that this skill, which can be deliberately practiced, may be more important than any specific communication technique. But perspective-taking is not just about imagining how someone else feels. It also involves understanding the specific motivations, fears, and desires that drive their behavior. This deeper level of social understanding allows you to connect with others in ways that feel meaningful and authentic to them. Take the example of Gordon Matthews, a sales director who consistently struggled with client relationships despite his excellent product knowledge. Gordon approached every client interaction with the same enthusiastic pitch about product features and benefits. When clients seemed unresponsive, he would simply talk faster and provide more details, believing that more information would eventually win them over. During our coaching sessions, we discovered that Gordon had never considered that different clients had different communication styles and priorities. Some wanted to build personal rapport before discussing business. Others wanted to cut straight to the data. Some needed to process information visually, while others preferred verbal explanations. Once Gordon learned to quickly assess each client's communication preferences and adapt his approach accordingly, his sales numbers increased by 47% within 3 months. More importantly, he reported feeling more authentic and energized in his interactions because he was finally connecting with clients rather than talking at them. For the first time, Gordon told me, I am actually listening instead of just waiting for my turn to speak. And paradoxically, the more I focus on understanding their world, the more they seem interested in what I have to offer. Gordon's experience highlights another counterintuitive truth about social intelligence. Effective social connection often requires us to temporarily set aside our own agenda to fully understand someone else's. This does not mean abandoning your needs or perspective. Rather, it means creating space to genuinely comprehend another person before trying to be comprehended yourself. This principle is eloquently captured in Stephen Covey's famous quote, "Seek first to understand, then to be understood." Research consistently shows that people who practice this approach are perceived as more trustworthy, empathetic, and influential than those who primarily focus on expressing their own viewpoints. But how exactly do you put this principle into practice in everyday interactions? What specific behaviors separate those who connect effortlessly from those who struggle? And most importantly, how can you develop these abilities even if they do not come naturally to you? The key breakthrough in developing social intelligence lies in understanding that it is not a single skill but rather a constellation of interconnected abilities that can be developed systematically. When these abilities work together harmoniously, they create what appears to others as natural charisma or effortless social grace. Let us break these down into 7 transformative social intelligence hacks that you can begin implementing immediately. Hack number 1. The 80-20 listening revolution. Most people believe they are good listeners, but research from the International Listening Association suggests that the average person remembers only about 25% of what they hear in a conversation. Even more concerning, We typically spend about 80% of our mental energy formulating our response while someone else is still speaking. Truly skilled social connectors flip this ratio. They practice what I call 80-20 listening, devoting 80% of their mental energy to fully absorbing and understanding what someone is saying, and only 20% to formulating their response. This approach transforms conversations in remarkable ways. When people feel genuinely heard and understood, they naturally open up more, share deeper insights, and feel more connected to the listener. Tiffany Spencer, a management consultant who implemented this technique, described the impact. It was like I suddenly had conversational superpowers. People started telling me I was easy to talk to, even though I was actually saying less than before. What changed was the quality of my attention. To practice this skill, try this 3-step process in your next conversation. First, eliminate distractions completely. Put away your phone, turn away from your computer, and position your body to face the speaker directly. Second, listen for understanding rather than agreement or disagreement. Temporarily suspend judgment about whether you think what they are saying is right or wrong. Instead, focus entirely on comprehending their perspective. Third, practice reflective responses that demonstrate your understanding before adding your own thoughts. Phrases like, "What I am hearing is," or "It sounds like what matters to you is," show that you are genuinely processing what they have shared. Hack number 2. The validation before solution framework. One of the most common social missteps occurs when someone shares a problem or challenge. Most of us immediately jump to offering solutions or advice. While well-intentioned, this approach often backfires because it skips a critical step in human connection: emotional validation. Research from relationship psychologist John Gottman has demonstrated that validation, acknowledging and accepting someone's emotional experience, must precede problem-solving in effective communication. This insight transformed the communication style of Gary Morrison, a technology executive who was perceived as brilliant but cold by his team. Gary would instantly provide technical solutions whenever team members brought challenges to him. While his solutions were often correct, team members stopped coming to him because they did not feel emotionally supported. I taught Gary the validation before solution framework, a simple 3-part response structure. First, acknowledge the emotion. That sounds really frustrating. Second, validate the legitimacy of their reaction. I can understand why you would feel that way. Third, only then move to collaborative problem solving. Would it be helpful if we explored some options together? Within weeks of implementing this approach, Gary noticed a dramatic shift in his team dynamics. People are coming to me more often, and the solutions we develop together are actually better than what I would have come up with alone, he reported. This technique works because it addresses a fundamental human need. Before we can focus on solving problems, we need to feel that our emotional experience has been recognized and accepted. Hack number 3. The social question hierarchy. Not all questions are created equal when it comes to building connection. Research from social psychologist Arthur Aaron identified a hierarchy of question types that systematically deepen relationships. At the bottom level are factual questions. What do you do for work? While necessary in initial interactions, these create only surface-level connections. The middle level contains opinion questions. What do you think about? These begin to reveal values and perspectives but still maintain emotional distance. The highest level consists of experience and feeling questions. How did that experience affect you? Or what was that like for you? These questions invite self-disclosure and emotional sharing, which are the building blocks of meaningful connection. Teresa Sullivan, a pharmaceutical sales representative who struggled with building client relationships, transformed her results by restructuring her conversation approach. Rather than sticking to standard product discussions, she began methodically progressing through this question hierarchy in her client interactions. I used to think that staying strictly professional meant keeping everything about the business, Teresa explained. But when I started asking higher-level questions about their experiences as healthcare providers, their challenges, satisfactions, and frustrations, everything changed. Clients started seeing me as a trusted advisor rather than just another sales rep. To implement this hack, consciously move up the question hierarchy in your conversations. Start with necessary factual exchanges, but do not linger there. Transition to opinion questions that reveal thinking patterns, then to experience questions that create genuine connection. Hack number 4. The microexpression mastery system research from psychologist Paul Ekman has identified that authentic emotions often appear as brief, involuntary facial expressions lasting less than a fifth of a second before being masked by socially appropriate expressions. These microexpressions provide powerful insights into what someone is truly feeling beneath their words. Most people miss these crucial signals entirely, but with deliberate practice, you can train yourself to recognize them. When you can detect the subtle flash of disappointment, anxiety, or enthusiasm that crosses someone's face before they compose themselves, you gain valuable information that others miss. Gregory Myers, a negotiation specialist, credited this skill with transforming his professional outcomes. Learning to read microexpressions gave me an almost unfair advantage in negotiations. I could tell when someone was excited about an offer but trying to hide it, or when they were claiming to be satisfied while actually feeling disappointed. This allowed me to adjust my approach in real time. To develop this skill, practice what I call the facial focus technique. For 1 week, make a conscious effort to maintain comfortable eye contact during conversations and pay specific attention to the eye and mouth regions, where microexpressions are most evident. Notice any brief expressions that seem inconsistent with what the person is saying. Then, rather than assuming your interpretation is correct, use gentle clarification questions. I noticed you seemed hesitant when we discussed the timeline. Is there an aspect of that you are concerned about? This approach accomplishes 2 powerful things simultaneously. It demonstrates your attentiveness, and it creates space for deeper, more honest communication. Hack number 5. The prosocial power posing protocol. Social psychologist Amy Cuddy's research on power posing generated significant attention for its findings that adopting expansive, confident postures for just 2 minutes can increase testosterone, decrease cortisol, and significantly impact how you feel and perform in social situations. While some aspects of the original research have been debated, subsequent studies have confirmed that body positioning does influence both how you feel internally and how others perceive you. The key insight is that your physical posture not only reflects your mental state but can actually create it. By intentionally adjusting your body language before and during social interactions, you can literally embody more confidence, presence, and approachability. Gabriela Mendoza, whom I mentioned earlier, incorporated power posing into her pre-presentation ritual before speaking at academic conferences. 2 minutes in the bathroom with my arms raised in a victory pose completely changed how I felt walking onto that stage, she reported. My heart was still racing, but I felt powerful rather than panicked. To implement this hack effectively, develop a 2-part strategy. First, practice private power posing for 2 minutes before important social interactions. Find a private space and adopt an expansive posture, standing tall with your arms extended outward or placed on your hips. Second, maintain public power positioning during social interactions by being mindful of these key body language elements. Keeping your spine aligned, shoulders relaxed but back, not hunched forward, and maintaining an open rather than closed stance, avoiding crossed arms or turned-away postures. The beauty of this technique is that it works regardless of whether you initially feel confident. The physical adjustments actually help create the internal emotional state rather than merely expressing it. Hack number 6. The conversational threading technique. One of the most noticeable differences between skilled and unskilled conversationalists is how they handle conversation flow. Average conversationalists tend to ask a question, receive an answer, and then ask another unrelated question, creating a choppy, interview-like interaction that feels mechanical and forced. Socially intelligent people, by contrast, use what I call conversational threading, picking up on multiple potential conversation paths within someone's response and following the most promising ones. When someone answers a question, their response typically contains several threads that could be explored further. By identifying and pulling on these threads rather than changing the subject, you create organic, flowing conversations that feel natural and engaging. Tanner Summers, a financial advisor who initially struggled with client rapport, described how this technique transformed his approach. Before learning about threading, my client conversations felt like interrogations. I had my list of financial questions, and I marched through them regardless of what interesting things clients mentioned along the way. Now I listen for personal threads, like when they mention a hobby or a concern, and I follow those naturally. Not only do I enjoy the conversations more, but I also get much better information about their financial goals and values. To master conversational threading, practice identifying at least 3 potential threads in each response you hear. These might be emotional threads, expressions of feeling that could be explored; experience threads, mentioned events or experiences you could learn more about; value threads, indications of what matters to the person; interest threads, hobbies or topics they seem animated about; challenge threads, problems or obstacles they reference. Choose the thread that seems most emotionally resonant or personally meaningful to the speaker, and form your next question around that element. Hack number 7. The strategic vulnerability framework, perhaps the most powerful social intelligence hack, involves the strategic use of appropriate vulnerability. Research consistently shows that carefully timed self-disclosure accelerates trust and connection in relationships of all types. The key word here is strategic. Effective vulnerability is not about sharing your deepest secrets with everyone you meet. Rather, it involves thoughtfully revealing aspects of your authentic experience in a way that creates space for genuine connection. Psychologist Arthur Aaron's famous study demonstrated that mutual vulnerability rapidly accelerates closeness between strangers. Participants who exchanged gradually deepening personal disclosures reported significantly stronger connections than those who engaged in small talk. Gregory Matthews initially resisted this approach in his leadership role. "I was raised with the old-school mentality that leaders never show weakness," he explained. "I maintained a perfect facade of confidence and certainty, but my team kept me at arm's length. They respected me, but they did not trust me with their real challenges." After learning the strategic vulnerability framework, Gregory began selectively sharing appropriate challenges and uncertainties with his team. "The first time I admitted I was unsure about a strategic decision and asked for their input, you could have heard a pin drop in the room. But what followed was the most honest and productive discussion we had ever had." To implement strategic vulnerability effectively, follow this progression. First, start with professional or situational vulnerability, admitting uncertainty about a decision or acknowledging a challenge you are working through. Second, when appropriate, progress to personal growth vulnerability, sharing lessons from past mistakes or areas where you are actively developing. Finally, in closer relationships, emotional vulnerability becomes appropriate, expressing genuine feelings, hopes, or concerns. The key is matching your level of disclosure to the established trust in the relationship. When done correctly, appropriate vulnerability does not diminish your standing. It humanizes you and creates space for authentic connection. These 7 social intelligence hacks represent powerful tools for transforming your ability to connect with others. But their true power emerges when you begin integrating them into a cohesive approach to social interaction. When you begin systematically applying these social intelligence principles, the impact extends far beyond simply having smoother conversations or avoiding awkward moments. The implications ripple through every aspect of your personal and professional life in ways that may surprise you. First, your professional trajectory often accelerates dramatically. Studies consistently show that social intelligence is a stronger predictor of career advancement than technical expertise or even IQ. One study from Carnegie Mellon University found that engineers with high social intelligence scores were promoted 5 times more frequently than their equally technically proficient but less socially skilled colleagues. This was precisely what happened with Thomas Stevens, the executive I mentioned earlier. 6 months after implementing these techniques, particularly the 80-20 listening revolution and the validation before solution framework, Thomas received the promotion that had previously eluded him 3 times. His technical skills had not changed, but his ability to connect with, motivate, and influence his team transformed how leadership perceived his potential. "What is most remarkable," Thomas told me later, "is that I am actually doing less talking and more listening than before. Yet somehow, people now describe me as having executive presence and leadership charisma. The truth is I am still the same analytical person. I have just learned how to translate my thinking in ways others can receive." Beyond professional advancement, enhanced social intelligence transforms your access to opportunities. When you connect meaningfully with others, You exponentially expand your network of supporters, collaborators, and advocates. Doors open that previously remained closed because people naturally want to help those with whom they feel a genuine connection. Teresa Sullivan discovered this when her improved client relationships led to introductions to key decision-makers she had previously been unable to reach. One physician was so impressed by our conversations that he personally walked me into the medical director's office, someone I had been trying to meet for over a year. That single introduction led to a system-wide contract worth millions. Even more profound are the implications for your personal relationships and overall well-being. Harvard's landmark 80-year study on happiness concluded that the quality of our relationships is the single strongest predictor of both happiness and physical health, stronger than wealth, fame, social class, IQ, or even genetics. As you develop social intelligence, you begin creating deeper, more authentic connections in all areas of your life. Friendships become more meaningful. Family relationships heal and strengthen. Romantic partnerships deepen in intimacy and understanding. Gabriela Mendoza found that the social skills she developed for her professional presentations unexpectedly transformed her dating life. I had always seen my academic self and my personal self as completely separate, she explained. But the confidence, presence, and conversational skills I developed transferred directly to my dating experiences. I could finally be myself instead of the anxious, overthinking person I had been before. There are also significant implications for your mental health and emotional resilience. Social connection is one of the strongest protective factors against depression, anxiety, and stress. When you know you can navigate social environments effectively, social situations transform from sources of stress to sources of support and enjoyment. Gordon Matthews described this shift eloquently. I used to dread networking events and client dinners. I would need a day to recover from the stress of trying to say the right things and make the right impression. Now I actually look forward to these opportunities because I know how to create genuine connections rather than just trying to perform. Perhaps most importantly, developing social intelligence allows you to become a positive force in others' lives. When you truly understand how to connect with people, validate their experiences, and make them feel seen and heard, you gain the ability to positively impact everyone you encounter. This ripple effect is what motivated Tiffany Spencer to master these skills. Initially, I wanted to improve my social intelligence for purely selfish reasons, to advance my career and feel more comfortable in social situations, she admitted. But what I did not expect was how rewarding it would be to see how my new approach affected others. When I truly listen to my team members and validate their experiences before jumping to solutions, I can literally see them stand taller and speak more confidently. That impact on others has become more meaningful to me than any personal benefit. The implications extend even to your physical health. Studies have demonstrated that strong social connections are associated with lower inflammation levels, improved immune function, and even longer lifespans. One particularly striking study found that the health risk of social isolation is equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes per day. As you implement these social intelligence principles, you may notice improvements in your sleep quality, energy levels, and overall physical resilience, all indirect benefits of reduced social stress and stronger support networks. The key to fully realizing these benefits lies in consistent practice and gradual integration. Social intelligence is not developed overnight, nor through intellectual understanding alone. It requires deliberate implementation in real-world situations. I recommend selecting just one technique to focus on each week. Practice it consciously in various contexts until it begins to feel natural. Only then add another technique to your repertoire. This gradual approach prevents overwhelm and allows for the neural pathways associated with these new social behaviors to strengthen over time. As you progress, you will likely experience what psychologists call conscious competence before reaching unconscious competence. This means you will initially need to think deliberately about implementing these techniques, but with continued practice, they will eventually become automatic aspects of how you interact. The most profound implication of developing social intelligence may be its impact on your authentic self-expression. Many people fear that learning social skills means becoming fake or manipulative. In reality, the opposite occurs. When you no longer worry about saying the wrong thing or being rejected, You gain the freedom to express your true self more openly. As Gordon Matthews reflected, I used to think these techniques were about putting on a performance. What I discovered is that they actually remove the performance. When I am not anxious about the mechanics of conversation or wondering if I am making a good impression, I can finally bring my real personality and ideas into the interaction. This highlights a fascinating paradox of social intelligence. By learning specific techniques and approaches, you ultimately transcend technique altogether and arrive at more authentic connection. As we reach the conclusion of our exploration into social intelligence, I want to leave you with one final technique that encapsulates the essence of everything we have discussed. I call it the connection compass, a simple but powerful practice that can immediately transform your social interactions. Before entering any social situation, take 30 seconds to ask yourself 3 questions. First, what is my intention in this interaction? Are you seeking to learn, to share, to support, to collaborate, or something else? Clarifying your authentic purpose centers you and prevents you from being swept up in social anxiety or performance pressure. Second, what might this person need in this moment? Consider whether they might need understanding, encouragement, practical help, honest feedback, or simply to be heard. This question immediately activates your perspective-taking abilities and directs your attention outward in a prosocial way. Third, how can I create value in this exchange? This question shifts you from a mindset of social consumption, what can I get from this interaction, to one of social contribution, what can I bring to this interaction? These 3 questions, taking just 30 seconds to consider, reorient your entire approach to social connection. Rather than focusing on yourself, your performance, or how you are being perceived, you focus on the quality of connection you are creating. Tanner Summers described the impact of this practice. The connection compass completely changed how I enter rooms. I used to walk into client meetings thinking, I hope they like me, or I hope I do not mess this up. Now I walk in thinking, how can I understand what matters to them today? And how can I add value to their financial journey? This simple shift in focus has not only made me more effective but also eliminated most of my social anxiety. When my focus is on connection rather than performance, I paradoxically perform much better. As you move forward from here, remember that developing social intelligence is not about becoming someone else or adopting a false persona. It is about removing the barriers, the anxiety, the misperceptions, the habitual responses that prevent your authentic self from connecting meaningfully with others. Each technique we have explored is ultimately a tool for creating clarity in your social communication, allowing others to see you more accurately and enabling you to understand others more completely. The journey of developing social intelligence never truly ends. Even the most socially skilled individuals continue to learn, grow, and refine their approach throughout their lives. What changes is the foundation from which you operate, moving from social fear to social freedom, from disconnection to authentic connection. Begin today. Choose one technique that resonated with you and commit to practicing it consistently over the next week. Notice what shifts in your interactions. Pay attention to how others respond differently. Be patient with yourself when you stumble, and celebrate your progress when you succeed. Remember that behind every social interaction is a universal human truth. We all want to be seen, heard, and valued for who we truly are. When you develop the ability to offer that experience to others, you not only transform their experience but your own as well. Social intelligence is not ultimately about techniques or strategies. It is about creating the conditions for genuine human connection. And in a world that often feels increasingly disconnected, there is no skill more valuable or more needed. By mastering the art of social intelligence, you do not just change your life, you become a force for positive connection in every life you touch.